All right, buckle up for this one, folks, because we are headed straight to the bowling alley, but not for strikes and spares. We're diving into some listener-submitted true scary stories. And let me tell you, these tales are right up my alley.
Hmm, I can't wait to hear these. I love a good spooky story, and the bowling alley setting. That's a unique one.
Yeah, I gotta admit, when I first saw these stories all centered around bowling alleys, I was like, huh, really?
Right. You don't really think of bowling alleys as, like, prime locations for creepy stuff to happen.
Exactly, but maybe that's what makes it even creepier, right? It's that unexpected element that throws you off guard.
Oh, for sure. It's like the uncanny valley of leisure activities,
Okay, I like that, yeah. So for this deep dive, we're going to be checking out some seriously spooky stories from the Mr. Nightmare YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah. I've seen that channel. It's great. Lots of creepy content there.
Yeah, and the stories we're focusing on today are from a video called 3 Scary True Bowling Horror Stories. Shout out to the listener who shared this one with us because this is definitely a deep dive worthy topic.
Absolutely. So what are we waiting for? Let's hit the lane, so to speak, and see what kind of chills we can dig up.
Okay, so the first story introduces us to this guy. They call him Creeper Bob. And right off the bat, the name kind of says it all. Bob was a regular at this bowling alley, but not the kind you want to hang out with. He just watched people bowl all the time.
Just watching people bowl. That's already kind of weird.
Yeah, like he was studying them or something. Super creepy. And then one night, he decides to sit next to a group of teenagers, including the person who submitted the story, and he starts giving them all this unsolicited advice on their bowling techniques.
Oh, I don't like that already. That's just crossing a line.
Right, it's giving off major unwanted attention vibes. And get this, he actually touches one of the kids, grabbing their wrist to show them the correct way to hold the ball.
You know, that's too much. Can't just touch people like that, especially strangers.
Exactly. So, obviously, the teens are freaked out. They decide to cut their night short and walk home. And guess what? Creeper Bob follows them in his SUV, no less.
Seriously, he followed them home. That's terrifying.
Yeah, it escalates really quickly from creepy to straight up dangerous. Thankfully, the kids make it home safe, but later that night, the storyteller gets attacked in their house. They can't be totally sure it was Bob, but given what happened earlier that night, yeah, it seems pretty likely.
Oh my gosh, that's awful. Makes you wonder, what was this guy's deal? What was he thinking?
Right, like what motivates someone to act like that? It's unsettling to think about.
Definitely.
Oh,
It's a reminder that you never really know who you're dealing with out there, even in a seemingly harmless place like a bowling alley.
So we're one story in, and we're already feeling the chills.
Yeah, this is getting good. Can't wait to hear what other creepy tales lurk in these bowling alleys.
Me too. Let's roll on to story number 2, which takes us into the realm of hidden spaces and some classic teenage shenanigans. This group of friends gets their hands on a key to the bowling alley from a friend who works there. You know how it is.
Oh yeah, teenage curiosity and a little bit of rule breaking. I know that story well.
Exactly. So late one night, they decide to sneak into the bowling alley for a little adventure.
I can already see where this is going. What did they find?
Well, while they're exploring, they stumble upon a hidden basement, a full-blown secret room concealed under a rug.
Wait, what? A hidden basement under a rug? Who does that?
I know, right? Talk about creepy. And of course, being teenagers, they can't resist the urge to check it out.
Oh, I would have been right down there with them. It's like a real-life mystery.
Yeah, except this mystery comes with a scary twist. Inside the basement, they encounter a homeless man who understandably freaks out and attacks one of them.
Oh, wow. Talk about a reality check.
Yeah, not every hidden space leads to treasure. Sometimes it's just a stark reminder of the darker side of life. And for these teens, it was a terrifying experience.
Absolutely. It shows how easily a fun adventure can turn into a dangerous situation.
You know, it really makes you think about the boundaries we cross and the unexpected consequences that can come with them.
Very true. And it also makes you wonder about the homeless man, you know? What was his story? How did he end up in that hidden basement?
Yeah, there are so many layers to these stories. It's not just about the scares, it's about the human element too.
Exactly. And the way these stories intertwine with these very real, often overlooked aspects of life, that's what makes them so fascinating to me.
Okay, we've got 2 stories down, and both of them are already giving us those chills. But hold on tight, because story number 3 takes us back to the theme of feeling unsafe. But this time, it's in someone's own home. A couple goes bowling, right? Pretty normal date night. But their night is ruined by the girlfriend's ex-boyfriend who just happens to be there and creates a super uncomfortable, tense atmosphere.
Oh, the dreaded ex-boyfriend encounter. I can already feel the tension building.
Yeah, it's like this dark cloud hanging over their evening. They end up leaving early, but later that night they start hearing strange noises coming from their attic.
Oh no, not the attic. That's always where the scary stuff hides.
Right, it's like that universal symbol of hidden fears and secrets. So the narrator goes up to investigate, and guess what they find?
Don't tell me. A ghost.
Not a ghost, but close. It's a man sitting in a rocking chair in their attic.
Just chilling in their attic. Like he owns the place. That's beyond creepy.
Yeah, talk about a home invasion nightmare. Chaos ensues, the man attacks, and they have to call the police. It's wild.
Wow, this is getting intense. 3 stories in, and we've got stalking, a hidden basement, and now a full-blown home invasion.
I know, right? And they all revolve around the seemingly innocent world of bowling alleys.
It makes you wonder, is there something about bowling alleys that attracts this kind of unsettling energy?
That's a great question. We'll definitely have to unpack that further.
So we've got Creepy Bob, a secret basement squatter, and a rocking chair-loving attic intruder. Is there something in the water at these bowling alleys?
Right. Like, what is the connection here? Is it just a coincidence that all these spooky stories happen to involve bowling alleys?
Well, it's possible, but I think it's worth exploring the possibility that there's something more going on.
Okay, I'm listening. What do you think?
Well, first let's think about the bowling alley itself, the atmosphere, the vibes. On one hand, you have this place for fun, for leisure, bright lights, the sound of pins crashing.
Yeah, it's a social place. You go with friends, family for a good time.
Exactly. But then there's this other side to it, especially at night, when the crowds thin out and the lights dim a bit.
Yeah, you're right. It can get kind of eerie, especially if you're there late.
And there are all those nooks and crannies, right? Like the shoe rental area, the back alleys, the arcades tucked away in the back.
Yeah. Places where someone could easily hide or go unnoticed.
Exactly. It creates a sense of unease, like something could be lurking just out of sight.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So the bowling alley, with its mix of light and shadow, becomes like a breeding ground for these unsettling encounters.
Right. It's like the perfect setting for those darker impulses to emerge.
And we see that in all 3 stories, right? Each one involves a violation of boundaries, a sense of intrusion, of someone overstepping.
Yeah, exactly. With Creeper Bob, it's the invasion of personal space, that feeling of being watched and judged. And then you have the teenagers stumbling upon that hidden basement. It's like they crossed a line, ventured into a forbidden area, and paid the price for their curiosity.
And in that last story, it's the ultimate violation. A stranger breaking into the supposed sanctuary of someone's home.
Right. And it's interesting how that story starts in the bowling alley, with the ex-boyfriend creating that tension, and then it follows them home. It's like the unsettling energy of that encounter literally followed them back to their house.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like the bowling alley becomes this symbolic space where those feelings of unease and vulnerability can fester and then spill over into other areas of life.
And maybe that's why these stories resonate so strongly with us, because they tap into those deeper fears that we all have about safety, about privacy, about the fragility of the boundaries we create to protect ourselves.
So it's not just about being scared of the dark. It's about being scared of those subtle intrusions, those moments when our sense of security is shaken.
Exactly. And maybe that's the real horror of these bowling alley tales, the reminder that even in the most mundane, seemingly safe spaces, those boundaries can be crossed, those illusions of control can be shattered.
I'm really curious to hear what our listeners think about all of this. Did any details from these stories particularly stand out to you?
Have you ever had a similar experience? We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we're all ears. So as we wrap up our Bowling Alley Horror Fest, I wanted to get your take on this. We've talked about the creepiness factor, the unsettling vibes, but if we step back from the scares for a second, what do these stories say about us? About our anxieties and vulnerabilities in the modern world?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think, these stories, as creepy as they are, they really tap into something universal. They speak to those primal fears that we all share. The fear of the unknown, the fear of losing control, the fear of being vulnerable.
And maybe that's why we're so drawn to these stories, right? They force us to confront those fears, to acknowledge those vulnerabilities that we often try to push aside.
Exactly. It's like they're holding up a mirror to our own anxieties and saying, hey, this is a part of you too. And I think in a way that can be empowering.
How so?
Well, by acknowledging those fears, by facing them head on, we can start to understand them better. We can start to develop strategies for coping with them and ultimately for overcoming them.
So it's not about living in fear, it's about recognizing those fears, understanding them, and then using that knowledge to become more resilient, more aware.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance between being cautious and open, between trusting our instincts and engaging with the world around us.
That's a great point. It's not about shutting ourselves off from the world, it's about being smart, being aware, and being prepared. Because let's face it, the world can be a scary place sometimes.
Yeah, it can. But it's also a fascinating place, full of wonder and beauty and unexpected encounters. And sometimes those encounters might be a little creepy, but they can also teach us valuable lessons about ourselves and about the world around us.
So, for all of you listening out there, we encourage you to keep exploring, to keep questioning, and to never be afraid to dive into those dark corners, both literally and figuratively. Just remember to trust your gut, be aware of your surroundings, and maybe bring a friend along for the ride.
And who knows, maybe you'll even encounter a creepy Bob or two along the way.
Okay, maybe not. But even if you don't, we hope you'll leave this deep dive with a renewed sense of curiosity about the world around you and a deeper understanding of the shadows that lurk within us all. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and remember, it's always a good time to go bowling. Just maybe not alone.